Informed choices again, and today we are joining Karthik Ramakrishnan is joining us all the way from California. Karthik Ramakrishnan is a professor of public policy and political science at the University of California, Riverside, where he also serves as an associate dean of the School of Public Policy. His research focuses on civic participation, immigration policy, and the politics of race, ethnicity, and immigration in the United States. Ramakrishnan directs the National Asian American Survey and is the founder of APIdata.com, which seeks to make policy-relevant data on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders more accessible to a variety of audiences. He is the author, most recently, of New Immigration Federalism. The Immigration Federalism is published by Cambridge 2015 and is an official section journal of the American Political Science Association. Welcome to the studios, Karthik, all the way from California.
Thank you for having me.
So Karthik, tell us, what does the South Asian Diaspora tells you when you did this research of how engaged and involved they are in this election process?
Well, what we're finding is that South Asians, we focus specifically on Indian Americans in the survey, and we can talk a little bit about why it's challenging to get other South Asian groups in there. Mm-hmm. What we find is that there's a lot of enthusiasm in this election, and this is something that is typical in a presidential election year as opposed to, say, in a midterm election year. It's harder to get Asian Americans, including South Asians, excited about elections during midterm election years. Oh. Now, this year, the excitement might be particularly high, both because of what's happening on the Democratic side, but also what's happening on the Republican side.
Has a very strong implication in terms of even in the academia, where people are learning about how South Asians are getting involved in these processes and how they are being more actively contributing towards the American landscape. So this work, how would you get it to be more in depth in the next few months, and if so, in what ways?
So we have two more surveys being planned. Mm-hmm. One which will be collected in late summer and early fall. Mm-hmm. And we hope that news media will use it because traditionally the problem has been there hasn't been enough data mm-hmm. on our populations to be able to talk about them mm-hmm. with respect to the election. And then we'll also have a survey that'll be done in November and December. Okay. And that will dig deeper into some of the social dynamics within these communities. So mm-hmm. we're hoping to fill an important void that exists where South Asians and Asian Americans more generally mm-hmm. Are not being adequately covered when it comes to news coverage on the presidential election.
So, Karthik, that is also a very important point. You mentioned that there is a big gap where this research is going to be significant in helping people understand how South Asians and people of color and minority population kind of rank in terms of their engagement with the mainstream communities. And could you tell us more about how can minority or people of color can benefit from the research that you have conducted last month?
Well, there are a couple of things. One is that we need to pay attention to the kinds of issues mm-hmm. that motivate voters, including voters of color, to get involved. Mm-hmm. What we find among the Asian American population, and this includes South Asians among them, is that education tends to be higher ranked for this group than it does for the general population.
Okay.
So what does education mean? What we have found in prior surveys is that people want high quality public education, and they also want to address the problem of college debt and that burden more generally. So whatever it is, it'll be important for any campaign to make sure that they're addressing educational opportunity mm-hmm. and the cost of education. And so that'll be important to get people engaged in politics. We're also finding that healthcare is a major issue. and there's strong support for the Affordable Care Act and expanding access to healthcare.
Right.
So reminding people of healthcare and education as important issues, I think, will get them activated and motivated. One other thing that's an important piece that's still an untapped potential is the kind of political contributions that Asian Americans can make. We know there are a lot of high capacity individuals within the Asian American community, and there hasn't been enough outreach to these groups to make sure that they're more politically engaged. So that is something that'll be an important challenge for political parties and campaigns, but also for community organizations in trying to get more influence.
Absolutely.
Because one of the factors is that it's not just votes that matter. So given our population size, our campaign contributions can play a significant role in influencing the trajectory of what the candidates do and say.
I think this is such a significant piece of comment that you made, which is going to help our communities understand that what is the importance of data and how their image could be transformed in the public sector or in the private sector by this data of how much engagement, what is the role of these South Asian or as well as all Asian Americans have been in the past to contribute to the mainstream communities. Karthik, tell us your message that you would like to give our audience, that how can they make most from this election process?
Well, one of the things that I think is a key message is that politics is not a spectator sport. It's tempting to just think that we can just sit back and just consume all this information. A lot of people have strong opinions, and we find in our data that South Asians and Asian Americans do a fair amount of discussing politics with friends and family. The key is to translate that into action. Because we cannot have any kind of influence if we're not engaged in the political process. And I'm hopeful that in this election, we'll see record levels of turnout and interest among South Asians and among Asian Americans more generally, because that's the only way that we can have influence.
Thank you so much, Karthik, for joining us all the way from California. And I 100% agree with you that it is not a spectator sport. We have to be engaged, we have to be involved. And I thank you very much for joining us on Informed Choices.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. So, ladies and gentlemen, hope this segment will bring you some information that you are looking for in terms of logic and data and how we need to make informed choices in the upcoming election process. And thank you so much for joining us on this segment of Informed Choices.